Starting off this countdown, we have the plot to kill. This photo was taken of Thomas Bart Whittaker on the left and his younger brother Kevin on the right, just hours before Thomas planned to have his family killed. So apparently the two brothers were just goofing off and their mother wanted to take a photo of them. Then later they went out for dinner as like a little celebration for Thomas completing his exams, which was a lie. Anyways, while they were at the restaurant, Thomas had his friend enter his home and retrieve a gun and stage a burglary. He then waited at the front door for Thomas's family to return home. Once they did, he shot Thomas's mom and brother. His dad managed to survive. The photo shows Thomas's happy younger brother, but little did he know that his older brother literally had a plot to kill him. It's so disturbing. Moving on at number 9, we have David Johnston. David Johnston was a 31-year-old volcanologist that fell victim to a volcano explosion on May 18, 1980. 13 hours before his death, this photo was taken of him. That was the very spot that he was killed. So on that day, it was Johnston's shift to keep an eye on Mount St. Helen, the mountain where the explosion occurred. He was 6 miles away from the volcano. That morning, the eruption came fast and without warning. As it was erupting, he signaled to the base saying, "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it." Shortly after he radioed that, he was killed by a lateral blast from the volcano. Sadly, his body was never found. All that was left were remnants of his trailer. Now, it breaks my heart seeing that photo. Just look how happy he looks. Little did he know that 13 hours later, that would be it. Moving on to number 8, we have the deadly selfie. Another sad story of a selfie gone wrong. In 2016, a man decided to go with his friends to explore a waterfall in India. That's when he decided to descend to a lower level near the waterfall so he could have it in the background of his selfie. His friends warned him not to, but he did it anyways. The photos you see here are of him just before he fell off the cliff and 170 feet into the water below. Apparently, while climbing down, he lost his grip and he fell. People caught this on video and took several photos as it happened. What's sad is that in the video, one of the men in the background can be heard saying, "He is gone," after he fell. In our 7th spot, we have the lightning strike. This photo features two brothers, Michael on the right and Sean McQuilkin on the left. The photo was taken just before lightning struck Sean. So the two were in Sequoia National Park and the photo was just supposed to be a goofy photo. Your hair typically stands up when lightning is about to strike. Little did they know that the lightning was actually going to strike them. Now, this photo was then used as a PSA to warn parents about the dangers of lightning. Now, Sean didn't actually pass away from the lightning strike. In fact, he was knocked unconscious and suffered terrible 3rd-degree burns. Later, he took his own life. Still, this is one of the last photos ever taken of him. In our 6th spot, we have the DYATLOV Pass incident. In February of 1959, a group of 9 experienced hikers set out to traverse the snowy mountains of Siberia. However, they all ended up mysteriously dying one by one. This photo was one of the last photos taken of them. Now, this case has been debated about for years, and there's tons of theories as to what happened to them. Some say they were hit by an avalanche at night and died from exposure. Others say a Yeti got them. In fact, there was a picture of a creature that looks like a Yeti found on one of the explorers' cameras. But it's a very odd case, like their tent was found ripped open from the inside, 2 bodies were found and they were only wearing underwear in the freezing cold. Another explorer's body was missing her tongue, eyes, and lips, and 2 of the other bodies had major chest fractures. To cause someone that much damage, it would be like equivalent to a car crash. And another hiker had a really high level of radiation on their clothes. It's just crazy, and to this day we don't know what truly happened. We all have these theories, but the only ones that really know are the hikers in the photo. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the deadly Tinder date. A lot of people use the dating app Tinder, but there have been a number of Tinder horror stories of dates going terribly wrong, including this one. This is Cindy Loof. This is also the last photo of Cindy. Cindy was very excited to meet up with her Tinder date, Audrey, but Audrey wasn't who she said she was. She was actually a girl named Bailey Boswell. The two had already gone out the night before on November 14th, 2017. On that day, she sent a message to Bailey asking if it was only going to be the two of them. Previously, she had gone on dates with other women who would try to bring a male along for some extra fun. But Bailey reassured her it was only going to be them. On November 15th, on their second date, Bailey brought her boyfriend along. Bailey then convinced Sydney to participate in some acts with the two. This led to them playing a game in which Sydney was choked to death. So the last photo of Sydney was her all excited for her date, which would later take her life. In our fourth spot, we have Gary Box. Chances are, while browsing the internet, you have seen this very famous photo. This is a photo of a man named Gary Box, a firefighter who sadly passed away trying to rescue people during 9/11. This was the last photo ever captured of Gary. In the photo, you can see him running through the Brooklyn Battery Tunnel towards the towers among traffic. In fact, Gary's family never got closure as to what actually happened to him. His body was never found. 9 years after this photo was taken, the family finally found it online. And I mean, that was the last time that they saw Gary, so in a way, seeing him in action that day brought some closure for them. And at number 3, we have Robert Bud Dwyer. Robert Bud Dwyer was a Pennsylvania state treasurer. He actually became more famous after his death than he was living, and it's for a pretty dark reason. So basically, back in 1987, Robert was accused of taking bribes and being politically corrupt. On January 22nd, he went on live TV for a news conference to discuss these claims, and it was assumed he was going to resign from office. However, at the end of his speech, he took out a gun and took his own life. This photo was taken seconds before he did it. As this photo was taken, Dwyer was backing up against the wall and said, and I quote, "Please, please leave the room if this will affect you." He then pulled the trigger, and this was also viewed live by millions of people. It's horrifying. The worst thing was that the next day it was discovered that he was indeed innocent. And at number 2, we have the Stalker. On February of 2017, best friends Abby Williams and Libby German headed out for a hike in Indiana. This photo is of Abby Williams, taken right before they were both murdered. What's very disturbing is that in the background of these photos, you can literally see their killer lurking there. Apparently the man was stalking them for quite some time, and in the girls' photo roll, they actually got some pictures of him, probably because they felt like he was following them. So in the last photo ever taken of Abby, you can literally see her killer behind her. It makes me so sick. Worst of all, he's never been caught. There's currently a reward for anyone that can identify the man though, so hopefully they can get some justice soon. And in our number 1 spot, we have Regina K. Walters. Back in 1991, Regina K. Walters and her boyfriend ran off together. Later, they were picked up by a man named Robert Ben Rhodes. He was known as the truck stop killer. He was a serial killer that murdered over 50 women. Regina K. Walters was his last victim. This photo is of Regina after being abducted by Robert. He forced her to cut her hair and made her wear that dress and the heels you see in the photo. He then proceeded to take a number of photos of her, including this one in which she looks terrified for her own life. These photos were taken in an abandoned farmhouse where her body was later found. So the last photos of Regina were taken by her killer in the place she died. What gets me the most is the look in her eyes. She looks terrified, as anyone would be in her situation. Starting off this countdown, we have Carter Christensen. This photo is of Carter Christensen. On this day, Carter went for a free solo climb alone at Flatirons in Boulder, Colorado. He was an experienced climber and had gone on several trips alone. However, this would be his last. Shortly after this photo was taken and posted to his social media, he fell more than 100 feet down the cliff to his death. Carter was not using any sort of safety gear while climbing. No other climbers saw him fall, but they heard it happen and tried to help. However, when first responders arrived, Carter was already dead. They don't know if the selfie had any correlation to his death or if he just slipped and fell while climbing. Either way, it's incredibly sad and also heartbreaking to see this photo of him. He looks so happy on his climb. Little did he know it would be his last. Moving on to number 9, we have the Selfie Olympics. A few years ago, the hashtag Selfie Olympics was trending. Basically, it pushed people to take elaborate selfies. It led to a lot of people climbing up their doors. In fact, one guy got a blanket and pillow and laid down pretending to be asleep on top of his door. But then we have Oscar Reyes. Sadly, his attempt at the Selfie Olympics took his life. On January 2nd, 2015, Oscar dressed up in a SpongeBob costume and then climbed up on a door in his mother's bathroom. He then took a photo there and uploaded it to Facebook, and it got 200 likes. But later on, when he climbed the door again to take more photos, he slipped and fell and hit his head on the toilet. He passed away soon after from loss of blood. It's so sad how people are literally losing their lives trying to gain attention on social media. Just wish that wasn't the case for Oscar. In our 8th spot, we have the Panama hikers. Chris Kremers and Lizanne Froon were two young Dutch females that saved up to take a trip to Panama. Except while on a hike in the Panamanian jungle, the two disappeared. It wasn't until months later that their bodies were found, but it's still unclear how the two died. The last photos taken of them were in April of 2014, the day that they went on the hike. They are selfies of the girls looking very excited to be on the trip. These photos were found on their camera, which was found in a backpack along the banks of a river. The camera also contained other pictures, like of the jungle in the dead of night. Maybe they were using the camera's flash as a source of light. Another photo showed the back of Chris's head and it was bleeding. Again, it's so scary looking at these photos. Like, these poor young girls had no clue what was about to happen to them, and they were so excited for their trip. Coming in at number 7, we have the extreme selfie. 26-year-old Woo Yongning was known for his extreme selfies. He was considered a roof topper, which means he would stand on high buildings or structures or other precarious places and take photos and videos doing so. He made a living doing this, and he would do so with no harness, net, or safety equipment. This photo was one of the last photos he ever took. That was before November of 2017, when he died after falling off of a 62-story building. He was doing this as part of a contest to win 100,000 yuans, but this would be the last of his dangerous stunts. He climbed up to the top of that building that day with the hopes of winning that prize. He never thought it would end the way that it did. In our 6th spot, we have the cliff selfie. Sadly, over the years, the number of people dying from taking selfies on cliffs has increased. This case happened just recently. A couple of months ago, a woman named Elisa went out for a walk with her friend as a celebration after her city lifted the lockdown. While on this walk, she climbed over a safety fence to pose for a photo with the park's waterfalls in the background. However, after the photo was taken, she slipped on the grass and fell 115 feet down to her death. Her traumatized friend called the authorities right away, but there was no way she would have survived that fall. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the bombing. This photo was taken by a photographer on August 15th, 1998 in Oma. The red car captured in the photo contained a bomb that would later go on and take the lives of 29 innocent people and injure 220 others. However, the man and the child in the photo both survived. The photographer did not. It said that the man and child had left the area before the bomb went off. But as for some of the other individuals in the photo, they weren't as lucky and they lost their lives. After the explosion, the photographer's camera was found in the rubble. The pictures he took that day were still in perfect condition. It's just scary to think that he literally captured a photo of the thing that would then later take his life. In our 4th spot, we have the Facebook murder. A couple of hours after this picture was taken, Cheyenne Anton left, used the black belt she is seen wearing in that photo to strangle Brittany Gargle. The two were best friends, but apparently got into a heated argument and Cheyenne hit and strangled Brittany. Imagine taking a selfie with someone you thought you could trust just for them to go and kill you a couple hours later. It is so sick. Now, Cheyenne actually got away with this murder for 2 years until police finally found this photo on her Facebook and noticed that the belt that she was wearing was the same one found at the crime scene. She then pleaded guilty to manslaughter and was sentenced to 7 years in prison. Moving on, number 3, we have the stowaway. At 14 years of age, Keith Sapsford was sent to a Catholic residential school. He hated it so much that he fled, heading to the Sydney airport with hopes of stowing away on an airplane headed to Japan. But his plan took a deadly turn. On February 22nd of 1970, he snuck into the airport and climbed into the airplane's wheel compartment. He waited there safely for the plane to take off. Sadly, when the plane was 200 feet in the air, the plane wheels retracted and he fell 200 feet to his death. At this time, a photographer named John Gilpin was taking pictures at the airport when he saw the boy falling from the sky. He managed to capture this photo. That was the last photo ever taken of Keith. Literally, you see him falling from the sky. It's creepy. In our 2nd spot, we have the drowning. A couple of years ago, a class of students decided to go on an outing together. This involved going for a short dip and having a picnic. While swimming, the group decided to take a photo together. Little did they know that they captured one of their friends, Vishwa, drowning in the background. They were completely unaware that he was drowning right behind them. Now before you all comment saying how didn't they hear him, well, drowning is actually more silent than you think. It's because yelling or screaming or splashing uses energy and oxygen, which your body is trying to reserve. The group then went on with their day. An hour later, they were reviewing the photos when they saw Vishwa in the background. They were horrified and rushed back to the spot he had been. But by then, it had already been an hour and Vishwa had already passed. And in our number 1 spot, we have the last free dive. Nicholas Mavoli was known as a daredevil free diver. In May of 2013, he became the first American man to dive down to 100 meters with a single breath. In November of 2013, he attempted to achieve another record. He wanted to reach 236 feet with 1 breath of oxygen and without the assistance of flippers. These photos were taken right after his dive. As he resurfaced, he gave the OK sign, tried to speak, but then he passed out. He never regained consciousness. He passed away from pulmonary edema. Now, look at these photos. He looks terrified. He looks incredibly shocked and in pain. Sadly, those were the last photos taken of him. Starting off this countdown, we have PRABHU BHATARA. PRABHU BHATARA was a taxi driver in India that got mauled to death by a bear after trying to take a selfie with it. He was driving some passengers home from a wedding when he spotted a bear by the side of the road. He got out, leaving the passengers in the car, promising he would only be a few minutes. The bear was injured and trying to drink water from a pond. When he got too close to it, the bear attacked. He got pulled to the ground and clawed at. The photos you see here are photos people took of the incident as it happened. Now, people did go to his rescue, but were afraid for their own life. So they tried to scare off the bear by throwing rocks and sticks at it. But in the end, this enraged the bear even more. He passed away minutes after these photos were taken. Moving on to number 9, we have the burning windmill. Back in 2013, 2 young mechanics were doing maintenance work on a wind turbine when it unexpectedly caught fire. The fire spread fast into their only escape route, making it impossible for them to descend the turbine without being scorched by the flames. This is the last photo ever captured of them. It shows the 2 standing on top of the turbine holding on to each other. The photo was taken by a bystander. Shortly after this photo was taken, one of the men jumped or fell off the turbine to his death. The other stood on top until eventually the flames got to him. These 2 young men went to work thinking it was going to be just a normal day, but it wasn't. Imagine how they must have felt being trapped up there. It's so devastating. In our 8th spot, we have the lost hiker. This image was posted on Reddit by the user Cheetos Stained Heart. This was the last photo ever taken of her brother-in-law. A couple years back, he had gone camping and hiking, but never returned home. He was missing for a month until someone found his body on the side of the cliff. Beside him was his cell phone and backpack. On the phone was this photo. His death is ruled an accident, and it said that he fell off the cliff while on his adventure. It's just scary to think about how this guy was just relaxing, enjoying the view, and then minutes later, he's plummeting to his death. Coming in at number 7, we have the drowning. On October 22nd, 2003, Tina Watson and her husband, David Gabriel, went out scuba diving on their honeymoon. They just got married 11 days earlier, and scuba diving was part of their honeymoon itinerary. Now, in this photo, if you look right at the back, you can see a diver laying on the seafloor. That's Tina Watson. A few minutes before this photo was taken, it's believed that her husband turned off her air supply and held her underwater until she drowned. Then he swam up to the surface to alert other divers that she was in trouble. The photo was captured accidentally, and you can see the divers going to help Tina. Some say he held her underwater until she drowned. Others say he saw her struggling as a new scuba diver and just kind of left her there to die on her own. Either way, he pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and that was the last photo ever taken of her. Coming in at number 6, we have Gary SLOK. This selfie is of Gary SLOK and his mother aboard their flight. Little did they know the horrors that would soon await. They were both excited for their vacation to Malaysia. The trip was designed for single parents and their children. Sadly, 3 hours after that photo was taken, a missile shot down the plane as it flew over eastern Ukraine. There were no survivors. The 2 were so excited for their trip, they referred to it as their dream holiday. Again, just look how happy the 2 were. This breaks my heart. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the traveling duo. Meenakshi Murthy and Vishnu Vishwanath were travel bloggers that documented all their travels for their followers to see. The couple had traveled to a number of places like Niagara Falls and the Grand Canyon. Sadly, their trip to Yosemite National Park would be their last. It's still unclear what happened, but it's believed that the couple were setting up their tripod and camera near the edge of the Taft Point cliff when they fell over 1,000 feet to their death. The last photo of them were from that day. Another couple had been taking selfies near that same point and realized that they captured Meenakshi in the background of one of their photos. They also reported that the two had been there as it was starting to get dark. Could it be that they fell from having low visibility? We don't know, but their bodies have been discovered after their camera equipment was found abandoned at Taft Point. The creepiest thing? On Instagram, it seems almost like Meenakshi foreshadowed her own death. On a post with a photo of her sitting on a cliff in the Grand Canyon, she wrote, "A lot of us, including yours truly, is a fan of daredevilry attempts of standing at the edge of cliffs. But did you know that wind gusts can be fatal? Is our life worth one photo?" It's very, very creepy considering what happened to them. Coming in at number 4, we have Robert Overcracker. Robert Overcracker was known as a daredevil. He graduated from a California stunt school and then went on to do some daring tricks. One stunt he planned for 7 years. Little did he know that that would be the last stunt he ever performed. On October 1st, 1995, he got on a jet ski in Niagara Falls. His plan was to go over the falls on the jet ski, but then make it down safely with his parachute. However, while doing so, his parachute failed to open. This photo was taken of him just as his jet ski went off the falls. That was the last photo ever taken of him. It was taken seconds before he was torn apart by the unforgiving falls. Moving on to number 3, we have parkour gone wrong. Pavel Kashin was known for his dangerous stunts and abilities. In 2013, he challenged himself to do a backflip on the edge of a 16-floor building. He successfully completed the backflip, but as he landed, he lost his footing and fell over the edge. He died instantly. This photo was captured by his friend while he was performing the stunt. You can see he's in mid-air doing his trick. Sadly, that was the last stunt he ever performed. In our second spot, we have Japan Airlines Flight 123. This photo was recovered from Japan Airlines Flight 123, the flight that ended up in disaster with the plane crashing and 520 people dying. This incident is said to be one of the deadliest single plane crashes in the history. Only 4 passengers survived. On August 12, 1985, the plane took off at 6:12 p.m. and was scheduled to arrive at Osaka 1 hour later. But during the flight, the pilot had trouble controlling the plane, and they began to lose altitude quickly. This photo was taken as that was happening. You can see the oxygen masks drop down as a result. After failing to gain control of the plane, it crashed into Mount Takamagahara. This is the last photo of almost everyone on board. And in our number 1 spot, we have Marco Siffredi. Marco Siffredi was a French snowboarder and mountaineer. He was determined to be the first person ever to snowboard down Mount Everest. In 2001, Marco and his friends climbed Mount Everest. However, when they reached the top, they found that there was not enough snow for him to board down, so they took a different route down. But Marco was set on going down that one specific route, so a year later, he went back to the same spot. This time, he was excited to see that there was enough snow for him. Now, the trek to the top of the mountain took 12.5 hours. The team suggested camping out for the night and that they can all board down the next day. But Marco had come this far. It was his dream, so he decided, despite being overly exhausted, to head down the mountain. This photo was the last photo ever taken of him. It was taken right before his descent down the mountain. He was never seen again. His body was never found. To this day, they don't know what happened to him, but his friends believe that he collapsed on the mountain from exhaustion and then tumbled into the mountain's ravines. Starting off this countdown, we have the bride-to-be. This photo was taken in June of 2014. It features bride-to-be Colette Marino and her best friend Ashley M. Theobald. They both were on their way to Colette's bachelorette party. You can tell by this selfie just how excited the two are. But sadly, minutes later the two got into a car crash. Ashley survived, but Colette didn't. So apparently what happened was the two were driving behind a big truck. The truck's fumes were really bad and was affecting Colette's asthma. As a result, she started having a bad coughing fit. So Ashley decided to try to pass the truck and get in front of it. So she pulled into the other lane and sped up to pass it. But seconds later, a car emerged up a slight hill and the two crashed head on. After the incident, Colette passed away from injuries from the crash. Ashley was horrified. She said that when the crash happened, she looked over to her friend and she looked completely fine. But clearly, that wasn't the case. It just scares me how quick your whole life can change. Like one second, Colette's excited for her bachelorette party, and the next second she's being rushed to the hospital. In our 9th spot, we have Victor Barrio. Victor Barrio was a 29-year-old Spanish bullfighter. Sadly, on July 9th, 2016, his bullfighting days came to an end when a 529-kilogram bull's horn pierced through his chest. This moment was captured in front of a live audience and also was broadcasted on live TV. Some people managed to get photos as this happened, and it's horrifying. You can see the look of pain on his face as the bull's horn just plunges through him. Like, I feel so bad for him and for all the people that had to witness it. It's so scary. And at number 8, we have the dangerous selfie. Taking selfies any and everywhere is kind of the new norm, but you would never think that a selfie would be deadly. Sadly, you'd be mistaken. Back in March of 2017, best friends Nitzia Mendoza Corral and Clarissa Morquicho Miranda were taking selfies on an airstrip when they were hit and killed by an oncoming plane. The two were standing in the back of a van when this happened, but they were warned not to do so. They took this photo, and moments later, they were hit by a wing of a plane that they didn't see coming. They passed away instantly. Now, when you look at this photo, it just feels so dark, knowing seconds later the girls lost their lives. In our 7th spot, we have JOLEE CALLAN. On this day, 18-year-old JOLEE CALLAN went on a hike with her ex-boyfriend. JOLEE wanted to still remain close friends with her ex even after they broke up. But he wasn't happy about this at all. On the hike, he shot her twice and then pushed her off the mountain. Before doing so, he took several photos of her on the hike and posted it to his Instagram. He turned himself in later that day. On his Instagram, he posted the photos with the caption, "Oh yeah, just enjoying the view," and "Oh, at JOLEE is a kitten, the photographer." I find it especially scary that JOLEE has her back to the camera in these photos, because she literally had no clue what was going on behind her back and had no idea that the guy she once loved would then take her life. Moving on to number 6, we have the ultimate selfie. Again, we see a trend of people trying to take daring and extreme selfies. But honestly, it's not worth risking your life for a photo. Sadly, this was the case for Ana Ursu. Romanian teen Ana Ursu and her friend got on the roof of a train in an attempt to take the ultimate selfie. Sadly, while on top of the train, Ana raised one of her legs in the air and she was struck by 27,000 volts from the wires above her. The force was so strong that it sent her friend flying off of the roof, but she survived. Ana, on the other hand, turned into a human fireball, as sources put it. Later, she passed away at the hospital. 50% of her body was covered in burns. This was the last photo ever taken of Ana. It was taken by an onlooker and witness to the accident. In the photo, you can literally see Ana laying on the train trying to take a selfie with her leg in the air. This was taken mere seconds before she was electrocuted to death. We're now at our 5th and halfway mark with the submarine murder. Back in August of 2013, freelance journalist Kim Wall got an interview with Danish inventor Peter Madsen. As part of the interview, Kim was set to take a trip on his homemade submarine. This photo shows Kim aboard the submarine just before her trip. Sadly, once inside, Peter killed her and dismembered her body. Why did he do this? Well, some say he became fascinated with murder and torture. Evidence showed that he had been watching videos of women being killed on his computer, and shortly before he beheaded Kim, he watched a video on it. So it was clear that he had a fascination with it. It's sad that Kim had to be his victim. In our 4th spot, we have have Ann Faber. On the evening of September 29th, 2017, Ann Faber went out for a bike ride by herself. By 6:50 p.m., she got caught in the rain and sent this selfie to her boyfriend. An hour later, her boyfriend reached out to her, but by then it was too late. Ann had already been kidnapped. Her body was found 2 weeks later in the woods. That was the last photo Ann ever took, and also the last photo of her. Moving on to number 3, we have the Thai diver. Back in 2018, 12 boys and their soccer coach were trapped in a cave in Thailand. Apparently, after practice, the coach took them to explore a set of caves in which some of the boys were familiar with. But upon doing so, the weather turned bad and the cave began to flood. Trying to avoid the water, this pushed them further and further into the cave. That's when Navy SEAL diver Saman Kunin came in to try and save the boys. Kunin and his team had to transfer oxygen tanks to the 13 individuals. However, while doing so, he ran out of air and lost consciousness in one of the passageways. This is the last photo ever taken of him. It was taken just before going to try and rescue the boys. His passing is very sad, but he died a hero, and because of him and his team, the boys survived. In our second spot, we have the train selfie. Sadly, this is another case of people that risk their life for a selfie. In October of 2011, 3 girls, Savannah Webster, her older sister Kelsey, and her friend Essa Ricker were standing by some trains taking selfies. The last photo ever taken of them was this one right here. It was uploaded to Facebook with the caption, "Standing right by a train, ahaha, this is awesome." But as they posted this, another train came hurling towards them from the opposite direction. You can see the oncoming train's headlights in the top right of the photo. Before they knew it, the train hit all 3 of them and took their lives. John Anderson, the conductor of the train that hit the girls, said, and I quote, "They were in their own little world." He had blasted the train horn to get the girls' attention, but there was no response from any of them. They honestly didn't hear it coming. He continued on saying, "We watched in horror as we got closer. We saw them for about 12 seconds until they disappeared from our sight, and the train continued moving forward. They tried to stop the train in time, but sadly it was too late." And in our number 1 spot, we have the gruesome scene. This photo is going to send shivers down your spine. But before I show you, let me give you a quick backstory. So this photo was taken of Travis Alexander while he was taking a shower. It was taken by his girlfriend and murderer Jody shortly before she stabbed him 27 to 29 times. She also slit his throat nearly ear to ear and shot him in the head. It was a very gruesome and sinister murder. In this photo, you can see how uncomfortable Travis looks. It's almost as if he knew she was up to something. He looks absolutely terrified. Now, the camera that captured this photo was actually tossed into his washing machine as an attempt to destroy it. But it didn't work, and some of the photos were still salvageable, like this one and one that she took of Travis's dead, bloody body. I saw it. You don't want to see it.